Good morning, everyone. Please be seated. Today is January 27, 2020. Officer, could you please hand out those packets, those envelopes to the jurors? They'll distribute it to the right person. The envelopes are on the chair right there. Just give it to the jurors. They know who they are. That'd be the best. And then just collect the envelopes momentarily. So we are hearing the continued trial in the matter of Douglas and Rosalind Barden versus Johnson & Johnson, David and Darlene Etheridge versus Johnson & Johnson, D'Angela McNeil versus Johnson & Johnson, and William and Elizabeth Ronning versus Johnson & Johnson. May I have appearances, please, for the plaintiffs?
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, jurors. Chris Panettiere, Mo Schmeiman, and Chris Platz is held for the plaintiffs, the Bardens, the Ronnings, the Etheridges, and the McNeil.
Thank you. And for the defendants.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, jurors. Allie Brown and my colleague Morty Dubin for J&J.
Thank you. So, members of the jury, we are in the plaintiff's case in this phase of the trial, and plaintiffs may call their next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, plaintiffs call the CEO of Johnson & Johnson, Alex Gorsky.
Officer, can you retrieve a Bible from that desk there to your left? Thank you. Just place it here. Please watch the wiring on the ground, Mr. Gorsky. And remain standing momentarily.
Please place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. State your name for the court. Spell your last name, please.
Alex Gorsky, G-O-R-S-K-Y.
What is in your religious belief? Please place your hand on the Bible. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Officer, take the Bible, please. Thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
My name is Chris Panettiere. I represent the plaintiffs in this case, the Ronnings, the Etheridges, Miss McNeil, and the Bardens. Okay? And I'm the person who brought this suit against your company. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. You are the CEO of Johnson & Johnson, correct?
Yes.
That is the highest executive position at the company, true?
Yes.
You're also the chairman of the board of directors, correct?
Yes.
At the end of the day, you make the calls at the end of the day, correct?
That's not exactly correct. It depends on exactly what issue it might be. But ultimately, I'm responsible for the overall functioning of the company.
Sometimes you may have people who are handling an issue. Sometimes you might take a more direct role. Fair?
Yes.
Okay. And one of the things that you have recently taken a more active role in is the issue of asbestos in your baby powder, correct?
I don't necessarily agree with that statement. It's become active because it's become a larger issue, but it's not something that I've spent a significant amount of time on relative to my other responsibilities in the organization.
We'll get to this, but I mean, you've gone on national TV and talked about it, haven't you?
I've been on national television and talked about many topics, including this one.
Okay, right. So you have gone on national television, and you've talked about the issue of asbestos in your baby powder, correct?
I believe I have on one occasion.
Okay. You have also videotaped yourself speaking about the issue of asbestos in the baby powder and put it on the Johnson & Johnson website, right?
Yes, I did.
You've also issued statements from yourself in something called News from Alex to the employees of Johnson & Johnson, correct?
I issued hundreds, if not more than 1,000 statements about News from Alex to our organization, yes.
Specifically on the issue of asbestos in the talc, you've done that, correct?
I don't remember the exact number, but there may be one
Okay.
on that topic.
Right. And look, you have management of, I think, 246 businesses within Johnson & Johnson, right?
I think that's approximately correct.
Okay. And covers 60 countries, true?
That's, I believe, approximately correct.
So you do have a lot of responsibilities, right?
Yes, I did.
Do you agree that when the CEO speaks on an issue, that brings a certain matter of gravitas or a certain more weight than perhaps someone who's a middle manager or lower down the totem pole, so to speak?
I would expect all of our employees to, when representing the company, to take that responsibility very seriously, just as I do when I'm speaking on any topic.
That's not quite what I asked you. The question I'm asking you is, you agree that when you speak as the CEO, that carries, generally speaking, more weight than when someone who's not the CEO speaks on a subject, correct?
I don't necessarily believe that's correct. I believe it depends on the topic or on the situation.
Well, let's talk about this situation. You decided to go on television, we're going to talk more about this, to talk about the asbestos in the talc, and you actually stated you believed it was important that you, as CEO, address that issue, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right. We'll come back to that. Now, with regard to your role as CEO, you get paid to do that. Fair?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And as CEO of a very large company, I think everybody understands you get paid a lot of money. Fair?
Yes, I'm very fortunate.
Okay, yeah. And let's just talk a little bit about that. I've looked at some of the information we've been provided, and your total compensation is comprised of a few things: salary, stock awards, option awards, and an option is it's a option to purchase the stock at a later date at a fixed price, correct?
Yes, that's generally correct.
Okay. You have incentive plan compensation, something called pension value, and non-qualified deferred compensation earnings, correct?
I believe those are the majority of the topics.
All right. And in 2017, I show you made about total compensation about $29 million. Sound about right?
I don't have it in front of me, but I'm assuming that you're reading from our proxies. That would be the correct information.
Okay. Give or take $1 million, you're making $20 to $30 million a year for the last couple of years. Is that fair?
Yes, that's approximately correct.
Okay. And with regard to options, so an option, how much money you make on an option depends on what the purchase price is that you can buy that option for, and then what you sell it for, right?
Yes, that would be one of the factors.
The money you make is the difference between what you were allowed to buy it at and then what you sell it at. Sure.
That's correct.
And you referenced a proxy statement. I have something called a proxy statement. This will be Plaintiff's Exhibit 3695-224. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'll let you take a look at that, Mr. Gorsky. Thank you, Your Honor. And, sir, do you see that this is Outstanding Equity Awards at fiscal year end 2017, and this is, at the bottom, it says Johnson & Johnson proxy statement?
Yes, I do.
Okay, is this something you're familiar with, sir?
Yes, it is.
All right. And, Your Honor, we'll just offer this in evidence.
An objection.
Subject to our earlier objections, Your Honor.
Noted, overruled. This is now in evidence.
All right. And, Brian, can we switch to the Elmo? All right. So if we look at your stock options here, and they're up on the screen if you want to see that, but you've got it, you should have it in front of you. Here's you, Alex Gorsky. And let's just look at these earliest ones. So they're granted in 2010, 2011. They vest, meaning you can't exercise them until they vest, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so these first two, they vested 2013, 2014. And then they also have an expiration date. True?
Correct.
Okay. So for those first two options, you couldn't exercise them until 2013 or 2014, and then you had to do it by 2020 or 2021. Fair?
That's correct.
And the price, the option price on these was $62 per share, right?
That's correct.
All right. Meaning you could purchase them at $62 a share and then sell them at whatever the then current price was. Correct?
That's correct.
All right. And it looks like it's 119,770 shares and 144,695 shares, and that's 264,000 shares approximately?
Approximately, yes.
All right. And just to show kind of how this works, you did exercise those earlier too, correct? I think in 2018?
Yes, I did exercise
Okay. All
in
right.
2018.
Okay. This will be Plaintiff's Exhibit 3695-226. Here you go, sir. There, Your Honor. And you see that this is just a report from the Securities and Exchange Commission reporting the same,
Yes.
right? And Your Honor will offer this in evidence.
Any objection?
Prior to our earlier objection, sir.
Noted, overruled. It's now in evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, so just looking at it, this just shows us how the sale happened. These were options that had vested in 2013 and 2014. And on 11/16/2018, you purchased 264,000 shares at $62 a share, correct?
Correct.
And then you immediately sold them for $145 a share, correct?
Correct.
All right. And so I did some rough math, and it looks to me like if you sell something at $38 million and it cost you about $16 million, your profit in that moment was about $22 million. Fair?
I believe the net proceeds, though, after tax, were significantly lower than that.
Well, sure. Once something is taxed, they go down.
Yes.
Right? Okay. But before tax, your net was $22 million. Fair?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So that's compensation. Now, you have been the CEO since 2012, correct?
Yes.
By the way, how many times those other options, because you had several series of options that were granted to you, how many other times have you sold or exercised your options since you became CEO?
I have not exercised other options. I have donated or transferred shares to several philanthropy organizations, a hospital, and my school.
So if I, but my question was, have you exercised your options to sell them in this way, sir, other
No.
than this sale?
No, I have not.
Okay. Now, when you started in the Johnson & Johnson group of companies, you started at a company called Janssen, which is a subsidiary, a pharmaceutical subsidiary, correct?
Yes, it is.
Was that about 1988?
Yes. Approximately.
And you were a salesperson, right?
Yes, I started as a sales representative.
You do not come from the medical side of the Johnson & Johnson company. You come from the sales side.
Of my approximately 29-year career with Johnson & Johnson, I spent approximately 18 months as a sales representative.
Okay. Well, and that, I appreciate that.
The rest of my career was in many other leadership and management positions.
I'm sorry, and maybe my question was back. What I meant is, you don't come from a medical background. Fair?
That's correct.
Okay. Not a doctor, epidemiologist, anything like that, right?
I was just trying to clarify that I hadn't spent more than that amount of time in the, as you had phrased it, the selling side of the organization.
Okay, sure. Now, there's always an element of selling, though, to having an executive position at this company, isn't there?
It depends exactly on what you consider selling, but that's Yes, our fundamental business is of selling products and services to customers.
Now, when you became CEO, they gave you PR training, right? Public relations training.
I've had communications training through my career, yes.
Now, you have testified, sir, you've had one deposition taken on October 3rd, 2019, having to do with this asbestos issue, correct?
I believe that was the date. Yes,
All right.
I've had one deposition regarding this topic.
Okay. And I may reference that, and if you need to see it, I can show it to you. But I think most of it's going to be pretty straightforward for us, okay? You testified there that you had never seen any information about asbestos being in Johnson & Johnson talc until after you became CEO. Is that still accurate?
Objection, Your Honor. I'd ask if we're going to refer to a prior deposition transcript, if the witness be given the transcript and the opportunity to review what counsel is referring to.
If he disagrees with the question or needs to refresh his memory, I'm happy to do it.
Just provide a copy to Mr. Gorsky.
Thank you.
There you go, sir. And if you need to consult that, you can. That was on page 72 and 73. I think it's conveniently highlighted in gray.
Okay.
Right? And so the question was, you didn't learn about the issue of asbestos and talc until after you became CEO. Is that still correct?
That's correct.
All right. And you stated here that it was around 2015 and you believe it was from company lawyers, right?
I don't recall or remember the exact source of who had told me, but I think it was generally in that time frame.
Okay. Prior to, you said you've been with the company 29 years. How many years with Johnson & Johnson? Set aside the subsidiary.
Just let me have to reflect a little bit on that. I became CEO in 2012, and prior to that I was a vice chairman from approximately 2009 or 2010. Prior to that, I was responsible for operating units within Johnson & Johnson.
Okay. So how long have you been, so to speak, getting your paycheck from Johnson & Johnson and not a subsidiary?
Again, I believe, and I emphasize that because I'm not certain exactly what, how the payment structure would have been articulated, but it likely would have been from about 2010 to today.
Okay. All right. And the first time you were aware of anything having to do with asbestos in the talc, as we established, was sometime around 2015, correct?
I think that's the case.
That's fair. Now, I want to talk to you. We've invited you here to speak about some things that you said to the public after some articles came out in December of 2018. You understand that that's why we've requested your presence here?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So the first thing is that on December 14th, 2018, two newspaper articles came out. One in Reuters and one in the New York Times, true?
That's correct. I believe one came in the morning and one came later in the day, or that night.
Right.
If not the next day, I don't remember exactly.
This will be Exhibit 3695-227.
And Your Honor, we do have an objection to this, and we've already discussed it with the court. I believe we're reading this.
I don't think there's been a request to admit the article.
Sir, do you recognize that as the Reuters article that came out on December 14th, 2018?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you said you weren't sure whether it was that day or the next day, and can you see then down at the bottom, it's got the date, December 14th, 2018?
When I made that comment, I was referring to both articles.
Ah,
I didn't know
okay.
if one was the same day later, but I remember this one, yes.
No problem. And you have testified that when this came out, you read it either on your phone at home or your iPad, right?
Yes, that's
So you've read
I
this?
remember. Yes, I have.
Okay. And then the next exhibit I'd like to show you, this is already in evidence. This is Exhibit 3695-228. And that's the New York Times article. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, I do.
I take it you read that one as well, right?
Yes, I did.
And that one was entitled Baby Powder's Possible Asbestos Link Worried Johnson & Johnson for Years, right?
Yes.
And Reuters was entitled Johnson & Johnson Knew for Decades that Asbestos
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach, please?
Yes. Sidebar.
Mr. Gorsky, did you read the title of the article when you read the article?
Yes, I did.
All right. Okay. Both of these articles, Reuters was morning, New York Times was night, were exposés about Johnson & Johnson's knowledge over decades about the presence of asbestos in its baby powder. That's what they were about, correct?
I would state it slightly different. They were about our alleged knowledge on these events as portrayed in these articles.
Well, you say alleged, but the truth is that you have never actually yourself gone through the company documents, such as the ones that this jury's already seen that have been presented in litigation, to determine whether or not it was just alleged knowledge or actual knowledge. Isn't that true?
I rely on the experts that we have, our scientists, our physicians, our doctors. And in some cases, they may share those documents with me to go through them in more detail.
Yeah. But you have not made a systematic effort. You have not gone through the documents, even the ones linked by the Reuters article, to actually evaluate whether or not it's alleged or it's the truth. Have you?
That's not necessarily true, if I can explain.
What you were given
Hold on.
is...
The witness was not finished his response. You may complete it.
You know, there are, in fact, several instances where, upon reading the article, where in discussions with some of the scientific experts who were in the room or with the attorneys, that we had specific discussions about alleged documents or claims being made about particular data points or different reports. That's what I wanted to ensure that I was clear on.
Yeah, and you testified to that before. You said that you met with communications people, business and finance, investor relations, and lawyers, right?
And scientists and medical experts.
My question wasn't who you met with or how it was distilled to you. My question was, Did you sit down and actually read all the documents? Pretty straightforward question.
As I mentioned, I did not read all the documents, but I rely on the experts in these fields, and there were several instances where we would go over some of the particular issues that had been raised or the document that the allegation was predicated upon.
You said that. How many actual documents did you sit down and read yourself, Alex Gorsky?
Are you over what time frame are you talking about?
Well, let's talk about before you decided to go on Mad Money.
There were likely, by the time I was on Mad Money, I had completed several different reviews with our scientific experts as well as our attorneys. If I can just,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to provide you a comprehensive answer and a truthful one. We had several reviews as we were going through different litigation cases. We had reviews with our board of directors, and I also had been prepared for another deposition where I had reviewed a fairly broad number of these documents that were discussed in this article.
Right. My question is, how many did you actually sit down and read?
Objection, Your Honor. The witness has answered the question about 3 times now.
Objection sustained.
So, the Reuters article, the author, Lisa Geariron, actually links to every one of your company documents that she cites. You're aware of that, right?
I'm aware that there were links in the article. I don't remember each and every link.
And you say that now you've gone through some, but you can't tell us, you can't characterize for us how many. Fair?
I would say that I reviewed a number of what I felt were some of the key issues and allegations that were being made in conjunction with the expert review of our team.
Right. In fact, you've testified that the day it came out, the Reuters article, Friday, December 14th, you got to the office, you testified that a team was assembled that included legal communications, business and finance, and investor relations, and that included the company lawyers, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. If counsel's going to read from a prior deposition, could he just point us to where in the deposition he is? So we can
I'm reading
follow?
from my notes.
Let's continue.
That included lawyers, right?
I believe that it included lawyers, but it also included the medical and science and safety and quality people in our organization who are all involved with ensuring the accuracy and the transparency of the actual data set that we were reviewing at the time.
By the way, none of those people went on Mad Money. You went on Mad Money, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And they put together, as you testified to, and it's on page 144 if you want to look at it, they put together a summary response to the article, and that is what you reviewed over the weekend.
That's not exactly complete. While that team, again, a number of product, science, medical, safety, quality, legal, communications, investor relations, met in a collaborative way to prepare the company position. There was a lot of ongoing conversation throughout that time frame over the weekend to ensure that we fully understood all of the data and that we were responding in the most accurate and transparent way that we could.
They gave you a summary, didn't they?
They provided me a summary. At the same time, they provided me extensive background.
You may continue your response.
Thank you, Your Honor. They provided me extensive background information. I mean, Dr. Wallstreicher, Dr. Nicholson were with me a good part of that review period.
You know, Dr. Nicholson testified she didn't talk to you at all. Did you know that?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sidebar.
So, Your Honor, the email, we're going to offer that as 3695-229.
Any objection?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Noted, overruled. The jury will not consider the question with regard to Dr. Nicholson. Continue.
Mr. Gorsky, on that Friday, well, actually, let me just back up. I'm going to use these here. So these stories come out. I'll just slow down a little bit here. Try to get this so everybody can see it. Can you see it, sir?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, Reuters and New York Times, they have their story on 12, 14, 18. That Friday, I'm just going to put AG Alex Gorsky. You read the articles, right?
Yes.
And then you got on the phones. Well, I mean, you did a number of things, but one of the things you did is you got on the phones to some of your largest investors to reassure them, correct?
I did not personally.
Do you have that email in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
All right. And you see this is an inquiry from the Wall Street Journal to Ernie Newitz. Is that how you say his name?
Yes, it is.
And Mr. Newitz is asked different questions. And there's 3 bullet points. The third one is the reporter says, CFO Joseph Wolk, is that how you say it?
Yes.
Joseph Wolk and CEO Alex Gorsky have been calling top J&J investors since Friday to offer reassurance. And then do you see that Mr. Newitz says point 1 and 3, which would be that last point I just read? Yes. Do you see that?
I see that.
So he was in error. You were not calling investors to reassure them.
I personally was not. Our CFO and investor relations team was, but I do not remember talking to any investors that day.
You don't remember to, or you did not?
I did not, and I have no memory, but I did not.
Okay. Let's talk about these articles presented broadly speaking, 2 issues. One was a money issue. The stock that day lost about 10%, right?
I think that's approximately correct.
Yeah. And that cost the company's stock about $50 billion loss, right?
I think that's what it would have equated to, yes.
The other one was what I'll just call a health concern. Because these reports were saying that there was a carcinogen in Johnson & Johnson's baby powder, correct?
Yes. Among other allegations as well, but that was one of the allegations.
Now, sir, it's true, is it not, that in the days and weeks following this, you put your attention as CEO into this side of the ledger, so to speak. Is that correct?
I think I put my attention on both sides of the ledger.
Well, you decided to go on a show called Mad Money, right?
Yes, I did.
And Mad Money is a show that is for primarily people who are interested in stocks, investments, and so forth, correct?
It's my understanding it's a broadly watched program for investors across a wide range of the spectrum.
Now, when this came out, and Reuters was a 23-page article, approximately, right?
I'm going to take you at your word that's in front of me.
You got it?
It was a long article, yes.
Yeah, these were not, 1 or 2 page quick hits, right?
The Reuters article was a longer piece, yes.
New York Times was around 10 pages, fair?
Again, I don't remember exactly how it looked in the paper or online, what that computes to in terms of pages.
Both of them were what you would call investigative journalism, correct?
I don't know exactly how you would define that term, but they were particularly the Reuters article was a longer article.
Yes. Would you say it was very heavily cited to documentary evidence?
I would say it was documented to select pieces of information. That's how I would characterize it.
Well, I think you said some of that on Mad Money, so let's talk a little bit about that. This will be Exhibit 3695-230. Sir, have you reviewed this transcript before?
And yes, I have.
Okay, all right. And if you need to page through it and make sure it's an accurate reflection of what happened in that interview, you can do that. But, Your Honor, at this time, we'll offer this in evidence.
And, Your Honor, there are a number of redactions that would be appropriate. We're happy to handle.
And I'm sure we would agree to those.
Thank you. Subject to that agreement, it's now admitted.
Now, before we get to what you actually said, in advance of this, you actually, Mr. Kramer, actually there's the host is named Jim Kramer with a C, correct?
Yes.
And the host was emailing with you and your folks, correct?
I believe I received one email from him, but he was, I believe our team was in communication with him to arrange for that interview.
Now, in fairness, just speaking in kind of lay people's terms, Mad Money was sort of a friendly venue. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't characterize it that way. I think we felt it was a fair venue.
Okay. This will be Exhibit 3695-231.
Thank you.
And we offer this in evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Admitted.
You see this is a short email chain?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So, I keep dropping my letters. It's not forever. There it is. No, it's right here. It's right here. Keep track. Okay. Put a tracer on it. All right. Here's what Jim Kramer, the host of Mad Money, emailed you on that morning. He said, "Dear Alex, if you feel these talc stories are not truthful, I would love to know how to refute them. All the best, Jim." Do you remember getting that email?
Yes.
Okay. And the truth is, you know that Jim Kramer is actually, he has a trust that actually holds Johnson & Johnson stock, correct?
I've heard him make that statement several times whenever he talks about Johnson & Johnson on his program.
All right. And so do you take him at his word?
Yes.
Okay. And you wrote back, "Jim, I know Danielle has reached out. Please let us know if we can provide any additional information. Thank you, Alex." And I asked you whether or not you thought this was sort of a friendly venue. You said it was fair. Here's what he wrote back. "Thank you, Alex. Do not be afraid to overwhelm me. I will work all weekend to tell the truth about your great company," with 3 exclamation points, Jim, in what's got to be 30-point font. Is that what he says?
I think Jim always uses 30-point font from the earlier message.
Right. But he's saying, "I will work all weekend to tell the truth about your great company," right?
That's what the statement says, yes.
All right. You testified before that you looked at potential other venues, other shows to go on, but this is the one you chose, right?
I did not choose the venue. I took the advice and counsel of our communication team who made the recommendation to me.
Sir, that's fine. That's fine. At the end of the day, they make recommendations to you. As CEO, you could choose to do it or not. Fair?
I'm not a communications person, so I rely on them to give me the best advice and counsel on where they think is the most appropriate venue, and that's what I used.
I'm just asking you, sir, do you have the right, as CEO, if you want to say, "I don't want to go there, I want to go here"? Can you do that?
Of course, I would always have that right.
And that's all I'm asking. All right. Now, before this, did they give you a interview prep memo for your interview with Mr. Kramer?
As I remember, they provided me with the statement that had gone to our website, along with some of the articles, and then I don't remember, there may have been some additional information that our science and quality people had provided me as well.
Now, you had been on Mad Money before, right?
I had been on Mad Money perhaps once or twice before,
Yeah.
regarding some veterans programs
Yeah.
and other things that I did.
And what they do in preparation for those types of interviews is you get a memo that talks about what you're going to be talking about, things to mention, and then it gives you a list of contingencies. If this is brought up, here's what you say. If this is brought up, here's what you say. Correct?
No, that's not actually correct.
Okay.
Can I explain that further?
Well, I'm going to show it to you, and perhaps we can hash it out. This is Exhibit 3695-233. All right.
Your Honor, may we be heard on this sidebar, please?
Sure.
Mr. Gorsky, sorry. Who's Aaron Burke?
Aaron Burke?
Mm-hmm.
I don't recognize the name.
That's very
No.
You see what I just gave you, this interview with Jim Kramer, CNBC? This was one from November 9th of another year. Do you
Yes,
see that?
I do
Okay.
see.
All right. And what is this document that we're looking at here?
This would be a preparatory document for whenever I do external interviews on a topic. I'll get a broad preparatory backgrounder on usually the person who I'm interviewing with, as well as potential themes. And it's one of many sources that I'll use in preparation for that.
So when I've talked about the memo, and I don't remember what I called it, but this would be one of those preparatory memos you received, fair?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Now, you said it also includes information about the person that you're interviewing with. So if we look at the, and Your Honor, we're going to offer this in evidence subject to the redactions discussed in sidebar.
Subject to my prior objections, Your Honor. No further objection.
Subject to the redactions, objection noted, now admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. If you'll turn to page 11, sir.
Yes.
It's got the interviewer. There's Mr. Mad Money there. He's got his sleeves rolled up, as he always does, right?
I know that's Jim Kramer.
Okay,
I don't
right.
know about the sleeves.
It says he's highly influential and sought-after individual. For financial and stock analysis, he maintains an active Twitter feed with over 1 million followers, et cetera, et cetera. He has positively commented on J&J stock performance during 3Q earnings. So you said you had gone on his show one time before. Would this be that time?
No, I said I remember being there one time before, but I believe I was on for 2 different Veterans Day programs with him.
Right. And this one references that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, another thing I asked you was that these preparatory memos, they give you a series of potential contingencies on what to say if certain things are brought up. Fair?
They review a number of potential questions, responses, issues that I might encounter.
Now, some of these issues, I'm going to fold this page, because some of these issues we're not addressing in this trial, but If you'll go to
What page, please?
page 9. If you'll go to page 9, please, sir. And if you see, it says, if asked about. There's several if asked about. Do you see those?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I only want to ask you about the one that says if asked about asbestos. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And what was written for you here was, if asked about asbestos, you say, we are confident that our talc products are and have always been asbestos free of asbestos based on decades of monitoring, testing, and regulation, historical testing of samples by the FDA, numerous independent laboratories, and numerous independent scientists have all confirmed the absence of asbestos in our talc products. Right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is one of those things that somebody else wrote for you, as I asked, where they said, here's what you say if this comes up, right?
This is a background preparation statement, but of course it would be done in the context of my additional knowledge or understanding of the topic as well.
And at that time, it's true you didn't really have any additional knowledge or understanding of the asbestos and talc topic, correct?
I'm just looking back at the source date.
Sure.
Council, what's the year of this?
Is there a year?
This one, if you look at the very end, under recent and relevant Jim Cramer interviews, it goes through October 2017. So it postdates October 2017.
No, based upon even the earlier comments that I made, I believe I would have reviewed that issue again with some of our scientists, our medical people, as well as our attorneys and other quality and internal groups in the intervening time frame.
Okay, but you don't have any specific recollection of the meeting where that actually occurred, do you?
I mentioned earlier that there were several different time periods where either as we were going through the litigation, the initial litigation, that I got updates, or we provided updates to our board of directors, or where there had been other articles that had previously reviewed some of this information. I can't sit here today and say exactly what those various dates were, but I was definitely kept appraised by our team.
Okay, that's fine. With regard to the health concerns after the Reuters and the New York Times articles came out, and I'm just going to turn the page so you can see if you have a monitor in front of you. So we've got the money issue. We had health. You also sell a very popular cornstarch-based baby powder, correct?
No. Can I make a comment on how you're portraying that?
You can answer the question, sir.
Your Honor, can he be allowed to please finish his answer?
That would be cross-examination. Let's focus on the questions counsel's asking.
You sell a very popular cornstarch baby powder, correct?
We sell a cornstarch baby powder, yes.
Over the last 10 years, you've sold more cornstarch than you have the talc, correct?
I'm not familiar with the exact sales volumes for these products relative to each other.
When it came to this issue, on the day the Reuters article came out and the New York Times article, did Johnson & Johnson issue a temporary recall or hold on talc?
I'm sorry, what date are we referring to again?
This is right after the Reuters and the New York Times article.
No, we did not.
Okay. Did you, as CEO, demand that high sensitivity testing be done on the top for asbestos?
I had been reassured in numerous conversations with our health, safety, technical experts in this area that in fact we did consistently utilize all the appropriate, and I say appropriate in terms of the level of sensitivity agreed upon with regulators, as well as the larger body of science that those, in fact, were the methodologies that we had been using at J&J.
So the answer is no, you did not demand this, but you felt reassured. Fair?
That's not what I said, if I can clarify myself. I think in the context I was not only reassured, but I was told by the experts in these fields that, in fact, we were using the most appropriate, most up-to-date methodologies to make sure that our talc was safe when used.
And that is something that you reiterated on Mad Money. You reiterated it on the Johnson & Johnson website video too, correct?
Yes, it's something that I reiterated based upon the data, the information, the science that was provided to me by our experts.
Now, one of the things that you did, and is in the Reuters article, the Reuters author reports that she tried to have conversations with executives at Johnson & Johnson for 2 months before it was published, correct?
I don't remember those specific allegations.
She stated that J&J declined
May
comment.
we approach on this, please?
Sure.
Let's talk about some of the things you said on Mad Money, okay? I'm going to show a quick clip. You were asked this question. Allegedly. Oh. Okay, there it is. All right. I'll turn this up real quick.
It's not on this monitor.
Oh,
It's
okay.
behind you.
Thank you.
All right.
For more than 2 months, she turned down repeated requests for an interview with J&J.
Objection.
Jim, that's simply not true.
Counsel?
Yes,
Counsel?
Can we
No.
talk in sidebar?
I've already ruled on this. Move on to another topic.
Thank you.
Jury's not to consider what they just viewed. It's not relevant. Move on.
Let's talk about news from Alex. Okay, these are those missives that come from your office, correct?
There are frequent communications that I do on a range of different topics.
Okay, and you had already told me that you did one on this issue, on the Reuters article, correct?
I don't remember if it was one or there was more, but again, I frequently put out these communications with the organization.
Sir, do you see that this is an email from J&J Leaders Communications dated 12/17/18, 3 days after Reuters, right?
Yes, I did.
And this is Exhibit 3695-234. And you can see it has something called The Truth About Talc. Please find the following resources available to you. News from Alex, The Truth About Talc. Do you see that?
I see that.
And this went out to J&J leaders. Who's that?
I'm not certain. It could be a group as small as perhaps our top 400 leaders. It could be a group as broad as our top 1,400 leaders. Probably something in that range.
So anywhere between 400 and 1,400 people?
Yes.
There? Okay. And, Your Honor, we offer this in evidence.
No objection to the Council Finlay Foundation. Ms. Gorsky saw and reviewed this.
Sustained. Laid an objection.
News from Alex comes from you, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you actually address and you sign it, correct?
It's prepared for me, and I review it, and then pass it along accordingly.
Okay. This is Exhibit 3695-264. You see that this is that truth about talc that was referenced in the previous email, sir?
Yes, I did.
From News from Alex. And it has 5 or 6 paragraphs, including then at the end, Alex Gorsky, Chairman and CEO, correct?
Yes.
This would be one of those ones that you read and approved to go out, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, we offer 3695-246 in evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Admitted.
Okay. One of the things you said here is you reference the Reuters article and the New York Times article, right?
Yes.
And you say, I trust you know that these media stories are one-sided and false. Correct?
Correct.
Now, you agree, sir, that if it was one-sided, Your Honor, can we approach at sidebar?
Yes.
Sir, let me just ask you, you say that it's one-sided and false. Let me ask you this question. If hypothetically someone refuses to participate in an article...
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection sustained. Counsel, I've made my ruling multiple times now on this issue.
Were you interviewed for the article?
I don't remember.
This will be Exhibit 3695-235. Did I give you 2? Or just 1?
I believe I had one.
Okay.
Is that your only comment?
It might be.
Take it.
Okay. Sir, do you see that that is an email at the top? It is from Josh Galper at dggpllc.com. And that's the external law firm that was handling communications with Reuters on this, correct?
Your Honor, may we approach on this?
Yes.
I have an objection.
One of the folks that you have worked with in handling this issue is a gentleman named Peter Bix, who's an attorney with a firm called Oric. He's one of Mr. Dugan's partners. He's over there, correct?
I know that the attorney Peter Vick is working on several of these cases.
And in fact, when you gave your deposition in October, Mr. Bix was the one there defending your side of it, correct?
He was present for that deposition, yes.
And sir, let me ask you this question. You know that the Reuters article, the author of the Reuters article, actually emailed all of her findings to Johnson & Johnson on November 16th, 2018, correct?
No.
I'll show you something, perhaps this will refresh your recollection. This is Exhibit 3695-236. Okay. Here you go, Your Honor.
May we approach on this, Your Honor?
Yes.
Email, sir?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And do you see that this is dated November 16, 2018, right?
Yes.
And it's a forward from Ernie Newitz, who you said was the VP of Communications, right?
Yes.
To two people. Brent Krasnov, who's that? Or Brett Krasnov.
I don't know.
And Andrew White. Who's Andrew White?
Andrew White, I believe, is one of our internal attorneys.
Okay. And then below, what this is that's being forwarded is an email from Lisa Geariron, the Reuters reporter, to Ernie Newitz at J&J, CCing Peter Bix, the lawyer that we just discussed, right?
Correct.
And what she does, so we have some context, is she gives...
Your Honor, the council has to lay foundation before he starts putting this up.
You forgot the one
That's fine.
question.
Do you see the pages that are attached? The email chain from Ms. Geariron?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And do you see that this is 12 pages of her findings that came out then a month later?
I haven't had a chance to read it in its entirety, but it's many of the points, yes.
Right. So this is almost a full month before it comes out. She sends 12 pages of notes of her findings. My question is, did Mr. Bix, did Mr. Newitz give this to you?
No, they did not.
They didn't. Now, what I noticed here is that this is November 16, 2018, where she sends her reporting to J&J. And the one...
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach it sidebar?
Sure.
All right, sir. The email from her was 11/16. Your stock sale was the same day. Right?
Yes.
And that was the one time you've ever exercised your options on stock of J&J to benefit yourself, setting aside charities and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
Quite obviously, a month before the article came out, that information was not public, was it? The Reuters information.
That's not exactly true. As I recall, our teams had felt that much of this information had already been released publicly and was out as part of the public record on from us, but also in other matters of litigation that had been reviewed.
What specifically was public about the Reuters article that the bullet points were sent to you on November 16th?
Excuse me, I meant the information in the Reuters article.
Right. And nevertheless, if it was all public and it was all already known, why did the stock drop $50 billion when it came out?
I don't know exactly, but I also know that during that time frame, there was a very significant market drop in the ensuing days.
It wasn't a 10% market drop, sir. You know that.
I think I don't remember the exact period, but the entire market had quite a setback during that same time frame.
Can we go back? This is just Yahoo Finance, right? You've seen stuff like this before, right? You see here, sir, 12, 14, 18. See that giant drop in one day?
Yes.
Right? That's what happened to the stock on the morning that the Reuters article came out, right?
Yes, we did.
And over a 24-hour period, the Johnson & Johnson stock dropped $50 billion, right?
Yes.
The truth is that almost a month earlier, you had hedged your bet, hadn't you?
No, that's not the truth.
Okay, that's fine. You made the facts are the facts.
Can I explain that?
You netted $22 million on
Honor, may you
November 16th, 2018. Is that true?
Your Honor, may you be allowed to finish, please?
Please finish your response before the next question. Go ahead.
No, that my trade took place at a time when I did not have that kind of knowledge of the article, or certainly what was transpiring. And up to that point in time, There were several articles reviewing this or similar information, and I certainly followed all of our appropriate approval processes with our board of directors, as well as with people on the leadership team who were involved with these matters to ensure the appropriateness and correctness of that particular exercise.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Not this time.
One of the other things you said with regard on the Mad Money interview was with regard to regulators. Okay, so I want to establish one of those things you said, and it should come up here.
James,
Oh, actually, this is the Johnson & Johnson web video you did. Do you recognize yourself there?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to examine one of the things you did in response on this web video. Here's what you said.
J&J has cooperated fully with the U.S. FDA and other global regulators, providing them with all the information they requested over decades.
So, you said that, right?
Yes.
That's still on the website, right?
I'm not certain if that particular video is still on the website, because there's a lot of we probably have updated it since then, but that may still be on the website.
If it becomes important, we can go to the website right here and see if it's still there. So you said that you cooperated with regulators, gave them the information they requested over decades. So that's what I want to explore with just 3 or 4 documents, okay?
But that statement was based upon numerous interactions that I had with our regulatory team.
Okay. Do you have an expectation that your regulatory team is giving you the full story?
It's been more than my almost 30 years of experience with Johnson & Johnson that our regulatory team provides me full and comprehensive information.
So that's what I'm vetting here, is we're going to see if they have given you the full story. And that's why I want to show you just a few documents. Okay, sir? Are you ready? This is a document. This is already in evidence. This is a document that is Exhibit 1338, dated July 17, 1971. Do you see that?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel has to lay foundation first for the use of this document.
It's already in evidence, and counsel's already indicated the purpose of it. I'll allow it to continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you see that, sir?
Yes.
You have a good Elma. This is a Johnson & Johnson document, sir. And you can see that this is a phone call regarding the CTFA. Now, you know that that's the Cosmetics, Toiletries, Fragrances Association, correct?
I'm familiar with that.
All right. Now it has a different name now, right?
I don't recall.
Okay. It says, Dr. Estrin called us this afternoon to report on a phone conversation he had with Dr. Schaffner at the FDA. First, he asked Dr. Schaffner how the meeting went with Johnson & Johnson. Dr. Schaffner said that it was a pretty good presentation and that the whole matter is now a question of methodology. Now, one of the things that you have stated is that methodology, Johnson & Johnson has used the best methodologies over decades, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what he says here at the end, the FDA, did you know that the FDA in the early 70s had actually proposed a method for looking for asbestos in talc?
When this document was written, I was 11 years old.
I wasn't even a thought in anybody's head at that point. Okay.
And so I can't comment on this particular document, the statements made in this document, or the context with which it may have taken place.
Okay.
However, I've been assured by our regulators and our science people that throughout this period that we did our very best to cooperate not only with the FDA, but actually with external bodies in this area to make sure that we were using the best processes, the best systems, the best science that was available.
Okay. And I'm just asking you about this document because remember, the conversation that we had before we went into this was I asked, do you trust your people to give you the full story? You said you did, correct?
I do.
Okay. See what it says at the bottom where it says, Dr. Estrin expressed his opinion that Dr. Weissler is a weak member of the FDA group and he will probably bury the methodology in a lot of paper. Do you see that?
I see that.
And have your people communicated to you, sir, that the FDA method was in fact buried under a mountain of paper and never actually came into existence?
I cannot agree with your comments based upon all of the counsel that I've received from the people that have reviewed these in detail and have much deeper domain expertise and knowledge about all these areas, especially on something from 1971.
Sure. So again, what you've been told sort of trumps this. Fair? You don't...
What I've said is to pull out one document that may have been from literally hundreds of thousands of documents and to say that this is the particular conclusion that can be drawn, I don't think would be an accurate statement.
I will show you more than one document.
And based upon the counsel and the advice that I've received from our people, our experts, who have, in some cases, personally told me that they've reviewed each and every document, that they remain confident in our testing methodology.
You've not seen that document that I just showed you, had you?
I don't remember if I've seen that specific document or not.
The other one I gave you is already in evidence, Exhibit 2589. You've got that in front of you, sir. That's dated March 15, 1976, and this is a meeting of the minutes from the CTFA. Do you see that?
I do see it.
Okay. And Dr. Schaffner, who we saw was with the FDA in the last memo, just says here that Dr. Schaffner suggested the possibility of having industry report periodically on the results of its analysis to the FDA. Dr. Estrin responded the subcommittee would give serious consideration to this suggestion. Do you see that?
Yes, I did.
So here, sir, and this date is March 15th, 1976, the FDA requests periodic testing data, correct?
Again, you just put this one document in front of me, and I would have to understand it in the context of the broader conversation that was taking place at the time, versus one particular paragraph. I'm not even sure who these people are.
Okay. Well, I can help you with that. Okay. First of all, this is pretty easy to understand. Dr. Schaffner of the FDA suggested the possibility of having industry report periodically its results of its analysis to the FDA. Now, that's pretty easy to understand, don't you think?
No, I actually think you're misleading in that statement, in that it is...
I'm misleading by reading the statement?
Your Honor, may you be allowed to finish, please?
Please.
Can I
allow
finish?
the witness- Yes, absolutely.
By the way you characterize that statement, I don't know who Dr. Schaffner is. I don't know if he is the responsible person in that particular division. I don't understand, was this an actual decision-making body? Was this his personal sentiments? Again, this document goes back to, I believe, 1976. And so it's to draw that kind of a specific conclusion, I think would be misleading based upon this document.
Okay. Well, I only read a sentence from the document. You don't dispute that I didn't read it right, are you?
No, I never.
Okay.
But the way I felt you were characterizing it in terms of a conclusion was something that I felt was a mischaracterization.
I hadn't even gotten to the point of characterizing it, but I'm going to. Okay. But before I get there, you asked, I don't even know who this is. Well, it's right there on that page. Look, those in attendance from FDA were, and there's Robert Schaffner, right?
What I don't know is what Robert Schaffner's role was.
So,
and again, what his specific responsibilities were in this type of a committee.
So here's the thing. You are telling us that based on everything your people have told you, that you fully trust, that you believe that you have enough to go forth and make the representations you've been making, correct?
Yes, I do.
At the same time, when I show you a specific document, you say, I just don't know enough. I don't know who he is. I don't know the context. I don't know if he's the right person. Correct?
It's an incorrect statement. I said my statement was based upon experts in these fields who have literally spent their entire careers, in some cases 20 or 30 years, in a particular area, who have reviewed the information in significant detail, and based upon those, and these are PhDs in many cases, MDs in other cases, and who have told me that they have read all the available information, have provided me input, And again, based on my 30 years of working with these kind of people and understanding the level of seriousness, rigor that they put into making these, I was confident in making that statement versus taking a single document, which may have been one of 10,000 that they have reviewed, to ensure that it was put in the appropriate context.
Let's look at 2596. This is 16 days later. All right? I'm going to give you some context. This is in evidence. Do you see, sir, that this is dated March 31st, 76?
I do?
Right? This is another minutes of the CTFA, correct?
Yes.
It's 16 days after the first one I showed you, right?
Yes.
There's two folks there from J&J, right?
Yes.
There's no FDA people there now, are there?
I don't know. Again, this was 1976.
Look at the list of attendance. It's right there, sir. Anybody from the
There's,
FDA?
there's none listed, but again, I have no other additional context other than this one specific document that you're outlining.
Let's see what they say about periodic reporting. Remember the request from the FDA? Dr. Estrin suggested the subcommittee should not obligate itself to give periodic reports to FDA, but urged members to build their database so that at some time in the future, the subcommittee can decide whether the time is right to present FDA with an update on industry analysis. Did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
Had you seen that document? Had your people that you trust shown you that document?
I believe I had seen this document at some point along the way.
And had you seen it before or after you told a nationwide audience that Johnson & Johnson always cooperated with the FDA and regulators?
I don't remember, but I remain confident in that our teams who would have looked at this in the context of dozens, if not hundreds of thousands of other documents demonstrating our ongoing discussions and interactions with the FDA would have provided me with accurate information.
One of the people that you said you talked to at some point was Dr. Susan Nicholson, right?
Yes. If I can,
Yeah.
Can we do a bio break,
Yes.
if
sure.
possible? I
take
had a
a-
bit of water and
Please.
coffee, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're going to take our 15-minute break now.